So when we think about trials, I suppose we've come a long way from what we might consider the first ever randomised trial. Well, certainly in the modern era, it mightn't be the precise first trial. Trials have been going on since biblical times, really. But if we think about James Lind, James Lind and his origins with his treatment for scurvy, where he had allocated different treatments to 12 sailors, one of them being lemons and oranges, and really around sort of the beginnings of the controlled experiment, really in the context of trials, to where we are today now. If we think of all that has gone on, and we think of COVID and all the rapidity of how trials were done, and the vaccines that were produced in short spaces of time, the hundreds and thousands of people that were involved in those trials, we've come a long way over the years. And I suppose the key message being trials do save lives, and we have so much evidence of that now in the trials research space. But along that sort of trials journey, if you like, over the couple of hundred years, there's been lots and lots of developments in how we do trials, of course. And considering anyone, and I'm sure there's lots in the room who have carried out trials, myself included, and we know that designing, implementing and reporting them can be complex. Lots of challenges along the way, both in designing and then actually carrying out our trial. And what we're really talking about when we talk about trials methodology is how do we do trials better, really? So all of the aspects around designing, implementing and reporting, for which there are many, can we do those elements any better? So trials methodology is all about researching the methodology of how we plan, report and conduct trials. And there is a nice introduction there from the TMRN YouTube video on what is trials methodology, which was is there for people to have a look at and share with those who might be new to trials methodology. So talking about the Health Research Board Trials Methodology Research Network, this is a collaborative initiative, and I know many of you here are members of this initiative between Irish and international higher education institutes and methodology centres. And the mission of the network is to strengthen the methodology and reporting of trials in health and social care in Ireland, so that they become more relevant, accessible and influential for patients and other service users, practitioners, policymakers and the public. So the network is now in its third phase, and that is 10 years, Declan, or more, maybe? Yeah. 10, anyway. So it's on the go for 10 years, and it's just growing and expanding and doing, amazing work. And all of that down to, that amazing work is down to this core team of people who are leading out on, as part of the network. And Tom here is managing us all today, so I want to just do a shout out for Tom wherever he is, because he's kept me on track with helping to organise the event, and Sandra as well, and lots of others, and many of you will know Tom by email, so I just want to say a personal thanks to Tom for all his help with me in organising today. So that's the core team of the TMRN, and then we have the Executive Management Committee, which is members from the different partner universities, and also a new member with this third phase, a PPI representative, Derek Stewart, OBE. So, and Derek is a great sort of addition to the network in terms of the Executive Management Committee and all he brings in terms of public and patient involvement. There's also an international advisory board associated with the committee, which is really important as well to bring that external perspective, that sort of objective perspective into the activity and the aims and ambitions of the network. So there's, I haven't put them up here, there's many members on that board that will advise on through the management committee and the core team as well. So what the Trials Methodology Research Network offers is support, training and education, like we're having today, an education and event, and also a research event. But also it will conduct research and innovation. So it will carry out primary research studies through many means and many individuals involved. So again, for many of you, you'll obviously be aware of the network, but it's really good to tap in every so often, because it's the website is very much kept up to date with new events that are happening, training and education events, a series of webinars, lots of activity going on the website, which is, I believe, being updated as well at the moment. So a new and exciting website going to be launched, soon.
Very soon.
Very soon. That's great. And in there as well, there's also funding opportunities that are there's calls out for funding opportunities every so often, between SWATs and funding to support core outcome sets. So again, it's to keep an eye on those offerings that come out at different periods during the year. I do need to mention as well, and I hope I get this right, because it's just a new call that has been announced yesterday, or this morning even, I think it's going live, which is around trials governance. So it's an opportunity to be mentored in trials governance with a team in Bristol. So again, I'll be certainly sharing that information around everyone, but again, just keep an eye on it for anyone who's interested in learning a lot more about sitting on a trials data safety and monitoring board, or all other things related to trial governance. There's a great opportunity coming down the track. So what I'm going to just mention for the rest of my talk is some of the initiatives that represent, I suppose, trials methodology. And there are many and many. So I'm always in the danger when I'm mentioning a few that I forget others, but I am just highlighting today some of these, and there are, of course, many others on the go. But this is, I suppose, for those down in the University of Galway, I'd say is the most exciting event of the year, which is schools teaching awareness of randomised trials. So a really, really fantastic initiative that involves primary school children designing their own trial and carrying out their own trial, and competing then for who has designed, what school has designed the best trial. And they all converge in Galway on the International Clinical Trials Day every May. I presume it's still every May, because I know COVID probably interrupted things a little bit along the way, but it's certainly back in its truest fashion, and was last year too. So the competition is open, so if anyone out there knows of schools that may be interested in getting involved, please share the message as well, and have a look at the website. Loads of lovely photos and information, and you can see the projects that the school children have come up with, so their primary school children have come up with on the website, the TMRN website, in the start page. So do have a look at that. But yeah, really, really great initiative. Very, very much fun event. The other project then is a priority project, and here there has been 2 priority studies carried out by the HRB-TMRN. One priority one, which is around how people, improving the process of how people are recruited to trials, and then priority 2 around retention. And these priority studies were identifying what are the, I suppose, top 20 to top 10 really in publication, but on the website they list the top 20 key uncertainties around recruitment, in terms of research that needs to be done around recruitment and retention to randomised controlled trials. And it's worth having a look at these priority questions for both recruitment and retention, because they're available as sort of priority questions that need to be answered. So they're valuable for maybe starting off like a grant application for something that needs to be answered because it has been identified as a priority, but also we have many PhD students who are undertaking have undertaken some of these priority questions, and we've one in the audience, Lydia, who's going to talk in a wee while as well. Another project then, just to mention, is and to highlight sort of trials methodology research, is the TRAIN project. So this was training trial recruiters and educational intervention. So it was a project that developed and assessed the acceptability of an education and training intervention for recruiters to neonatal trials. And the project is just complete. It's the report is should be available hopefully soon. It's in review process. But the project itself really culminated with acceptability testing, which this intervention, which is a training and education online workshop that can be delivered face-to-face as well for recruiters. And it focuses really on things that are, around bespoke in terms of one unit, but then generic to all trials in terms of some other units. Bespoke in terms of information are specific to a trial protocol, and this is what recruiters need. And when I say recruiters, I mean recruiters in the widest sense, because often trials will have maybe research assistants or those that may recruit, but many trials are reliant on clinicians on the ground to recruit, and I've certainly run trials like that myself and been a recruiter as a midwife on the ground as well. So but it's all around helping training and educating those individuals who are at that frontline level understand the importance of recruitment to trials, and how without good recruitment our trial becomes so underpowered. So that's another example of our trial methodology research that we have done as part of the network. I also can't not mention the PhD students, because these are just fantastic group of individuals who are diving deep into trials methodology research. So at the moment we have 3 cohorts of PhD students across the partner universities. Some of these projects are now complete, some are ongoing, and there's just some examples of some, but like that again, have a look on the TMRN website where you can see all of the projects that are happening and being undertaken by these PhD students, which is fantastic. So not only, I suppose, is the network doing research, but it's building capacity and bringing on early stage researchers as well. So really great to be involved in that. I also want to mention the Medical Research Council NIHR-Trials Methodology Research Partner. So the TMRN is partnered with this network, which is based in the UK. And this, like the TMRN, brings together a number of networks, institutions and partners working in trials and trials methodology research. And the link there to the website to have a look at that. But this partnership as well, again, the TMRN and the TMRP work very closely together. It's got some similar ways of working in terms of supporting cohorts of PhD students and so forth. This network also has a series of working groups. So you can see some of them here. We have a working group on adaptive designs. I think the evidence synthesis one might be on hold at the moment. There's health economics, outcomes working group, trial conduct, recruitment. And when you go into the website, if you click on each of those working groups, you can see here, like I have given an example for outcomes, the scope of the working group. And the objectives of it. And there's lots and lots of activity. I know Karen is going to talk later about outcomes, and as part of one of the working groups that I'm part of as well. And it's a really good initiative to be involved with when you're interested in trials methodology. So if any of these working groups speak to you particularly, it's there for people to join. So it's good to get involved in these as well. So the other initiative then that I want to mention, and this is a major cornerstone, I suppose, in terms of activity of the TMRN, is the study within a trial. And the SWATs war information, the study within a trial and study within a review information is held on the Northern Ireland Hub for Trials Methodology Research website to have a look at it there. But many of you will have heard of studies within trials initiatives, and many going on at the moment. So it feels like yesterday really, but it is a couple of years ago that we undertook the first SWAT, which was the effectiveness of a site visit intervention on recruitment rates in a multi-centre randomised controlled trial. And that was, again, like many of us doing trials, experience and struggle with recruitment. So this was a trial that I was involved in, where it was my PhD study really, but as we were moving through the trial, recruitment was always a challenge, recruiting, and the challenge with the trial, it was the ADGAR trial, was women were being recruited as they presented with signs of labour. So, doubly challenging, I think, time to recruit. But there was 3 maternity units that were involved in the study. So this SWAT was embedded to look at whether the effectiveness of a site visit by myself as the PI, and a purposely dedicated site visit, was had any effect on recruitment rates. And we looked at rates before and then 1 month and 3 months after the site visit, which took place in one site versus not that dedicated, even though I was running around all the sites drinking coffee for many, many days on end. But this was a very purposely developed site visit, and it did show to be effective. But since that sort of first SWAT emerged, we now have many SWATs that are on the repository. So I think it's down now at, I've last check when I copied this out, was 197, and I know there are others that are submitted awaiting registration. So anyone who is interested in a SWAT or undertaking a SWAT, I would suggest the first port of call is to have a look at the SWAT repository. If it's a brand new SWAT that you are developing, you need to really register it on this repository and get it out there as your design. But also the value of this repository now is that we don't, we don't want to be reinventing the wheel all of the time. We can, use SWATs that are there and replicate them. And the idea is that we, do replicate some of these SWATs. So we build up more and more evidence around measures that might, influence aspects of trial methodology, or can they improve aspects of trial methodology, or do they make any difference at all? And I suppose with that as well, anyone who is running trials in Ireland, we also have, the Definitive Intervention and Feasibility Awards that come out every 2 years. And within that now, the HRB will provide additional funding of 20,000 for embedding a SWAT within your actual trial. So it's really grown exponentially. I think this trial methodology work that's involving SWATs. There's another initiative I would like to mention, is the Trial Forge SWAT Network. Again, just flagging it there for those interested in SWATs to have a look at. Really good network led by Sean Treek in terms of SWATs as well. And there are others in the UK that they're heavily involved, like us in Ireland, in doing SWATs. So good to have a look at all that. I'm going to mention then just sort of the last sort of major initiative is, and one of many, but is just the core outcome measures in effectiveness trials initiative, the COMET initiative. Again, many of you may be familiar with this initiative, but it's about standardising outcomes so that we're not all measuring lots of different things in trials. While some trials may be important to measure some outcomes that are different to another trial, the idea of the core outcome sets is that there's a standardised set of outcomes that are measured across all trials on the same topic. And again, I know Karen will talk a wee bit more about this, but just to flag sort of the some of the work that I was involved in a core outcome set for pelvic girdle pain. So it wasn't just, what we did wasn't just what we should measure, and that was we ended up, after the consensus meeting with 5 core outcomes that should be measured in all trials in this space. But we also looked at how those outcomes should be measured as well. So there was sort of a series of activity that's involved in this core outcome set development process. And in that as well, to further grow trials methodology, so while core outcome sets are an aspect of trials methodology itself, we also built in some methodology work into how we go about doing core outcome sets. So generally, developing core outcome sets involves a Delphi survey, and that's usually based, and has been traditionally, on a 9-point scale. But we built into our core outcome set development Delphi survey a randomised control where participants of the survey were randomised into getting a 5-point scale or a 9-point scale to see actually whether that made a difference to the outcomes that ultimately ended up in our core outcome set. And I'll leave you read the paper if anyone is interested themselves. But it's just sort of, again, how trials methodology research is growing and expanding, and can start from something like a core outcome set to building in actually methodology research within those discrete areas as well. So there's, you know, enormous scope for us to explore and research, you know, what we're doing in terms of trial methods, basically, and the methodology around those. So just to make a note as well, and I think it's important that to flag this recent publication, literally out in the last couple of days, where in original guidance, again, you know, it just showcases how the TMRN network works so closely with our funders in terms of trying to really, you know, I suppose encourage that whole space of trials methodology. But in the original sort of definitive intervention and feasibility awards in 2014, the HRB had encouraged the development and application of the use of core outcome sets in those that were designing their trials. But in 2020, they changed that question to actually, have you searched the COMET database? And that question, by changing that guidance alone, it significantly increased the volume of applicants from 6% to 99%, stating that they had searched the COMET database. So, you know, a really good example of how funders and funded networks are working together to advance how we do trials, I suppose, and that we are doing trials in a rigorous and as high quality fashion as we can. So I'm going to finish up at that, and I'll hand over then to Declan, I think, to chair. Yeah.